Welcome, everyone. My name is Bob Jones. This is podcast number 2, Bob Jones Coaching. Today's segment will be called Using ChatGPT in Your Job Search and a second part on professional networking. My overall desire for the podcast is to help people in job and career transition. Remember, looking for a job or changing jobs or career is hard. Adopting and adapting some best practices and lessons from many previous engaged coaching clients and people I've worked with are things that were going to be integrated into the podcast. The overall result will be that it'll reduce the time, it'll increase the revenue and salary, and reduce the pain and discomfort of the transition. That's my overall goal. Job transition is hard, and many of my clients have been very successful because I bring best practice for many years and I'm a subject matter expertise. Also, it's a customized solution for each person. Job transition is a grind. It takes a lot of work to be a top candidate and to get a good job. And it's worth the investment. The people that I've worked with and people that I've helped have stayed in their jobs a lot longer than most people in a job because they're a better fit for that job. And when you fit well, you get compensated well, and you stay there longer. And I just talked about that in the last podcast about an ideal job. The mindset I want to bring regularly to the podcast is this spirit of there are great jobs out there, there are great candidates, trying to bring them together, how to teach candidates how to prepare and how to present and how to negotiate to get great jobs. The podcast format, I'll go over it. I talk about a topic for a few minutes. Today it'll be 2 topics using ChatGPT in your job search and professional networking. There'll be a short Q&A. I called a handful of people. I've got one good question we're going to go over. Next month in January, probably the next podcast I do, it might be the next one in January. I might do one before that, but probably next month, I'll have a guest speaker and, excuse me, not a guest speaker, a guest, and that person will be kind of a mini segment where I actually help them get a job. So it'll be live. One will be audio, one will be audio and video. I'm probably going to do 2 different people over different weeks, and we're going to track them all the way from looking for work to when they get their job. And it'll just be a short segment, but I thought it might be good and interesting for people to kind of see it live. The giveaway this week will be an expansion on the topic I talk about, using ChatGPT in your job search. So it'll be a PDF or a document that goes into more detail and more information on that. So feel free to email me at bob@bobjonescoaching.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. Obviously, a lot of you are watching me on LinkedIn. And feel free to send me a note and I'll send you that document. And I think it'd be really helpful. So let's jump right into the topic. As you know, I've got a better background and I have a beautiful halo light that emphasizes my Italian skin. So let's jump into the topic. Today, we're talking about using ChatGPT in your job search. One of the first things that people do is when they're talking about is I think you can use it for your resume, good resume. So some people put the resume in ChatGPT, have them autocorrect, do some formatting, some basic English things, but I actually use it. So say you're an IT person in a hospital or in a healthcare system, and you're trying to get into IT into a software company or a technology company or say a defense contractor. So what I recommend is go on Google. There's a way of searching for resumes with, you could say you're a Java developer or you're a financial analyst or you're a bookkeeper, and go in there and search for resumes. Say you have 5 to 10 years experience. Search for resumes of people you can actually do a double colon PDF. You can search under Word docs. So you don't get jobs that people are applying for, but actually people with resumes, and take the resumes from those industries that you're looking for. So say you take 3 resumes from the defense industry that are financial analysts, and save those. And then what I did was cut and paste them into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to look at the resumes for the defense contracting financial analyst and have them pull out keywords. And I say, ChatGPT, give me 15 keywords for a financial analyst, for I think I said financial analyst for ChatGPT, and it'll give you a list. And you can do it on each resume, see which the keywords are, pick the keywords out, and then take those keywords, enter your resume in a ChatGPT, and say, please, or no, I say please actually when I talk to it very politely. I don't know why. I don't talk to everybody politely, but I talk to ChatGPT politely. I say, please input these keywords into my resume or into this resume. And it does it. There's a little bit of cleanup you have to do, but it helps you have the language of that industry in your resume. The other thing I do is I'll take financial analyst, and this is the second thing I do related with the resume, and say, give me all the words used for a financial analyst job in the defense industry, because some industries have different words for the same position, but you don't know what they are. So it'll list those, and then you can change that into your resume. So it's not actually, so maybe you work for Tyson Food as a financial analyst, but they might call it, I don't know, they might call it I don't know what they call it, maybe a financial advisor or something like that, some other name. So you want to always have the same language of the industry you're trying to go into for the resume. So first, it's great for resumes. Those are some brief ideas you can use it for. 1, having it look for keywords in the resume. 2, you can have it critique your wording and make it more aggressive, make it the English better. There's a lot of adjustments you can do on the language and formatting. And 3rd, you can make sure it is written for the right industry and using the right titles and positions. So that's great stuff. Let's see, what else? You might say, well, another thing, so ChatGPT can be used for professional resumes. It can help you with common interview questions and how to answer them. So you might say, what are some common questions an HR person from a defense contractor hiring a financial analyst will ask? And you can do variations of that and see what kind of questions will be asked. That's actually pretty good. And actually, you can give it the answer in audio, and it'll, much like my rambling on the podcast, it'll give you a critique on how your answer is. So you could actually practice just with ChatGPT on your questions and answer. And that's one of the things, critical things that people don't do is they go to interviews and they never practice. They never get in front of the video. Like you said, I make sure it's at the right height, that there's proper lighting. I like having a hat on because my hairline kept moving backwards. My son says it's halfway across my head. So I like having a hat because my head gets cold. But, have video on, and you can actually do the audio into ChatGPT and have it analyze it and give you encouragements and areas you can improve on. One of the things I also have used it for, so professional resume, interview questions and answers. I have it look up companies and businesses and industries in the area you're trying to work. And just it gives you ideas, and you can look for certain size businesses. So I'll just say, defense contractors, Arlington, Virginia, 5 million to 50 million in revenue. And you have to work it a little bit, but it'll give you a list of companies, and you can then go on LinkedIn and message people in those companies and say, I'm a financial analyst. I'm looking for a position in the Arlington area. And sometimes they'll have an office in Arlington, but they're out of Georgia. But still, they have an office there. They're hiring financial analysts. Maybe they're working for DOD or Department of Homeland Security or something like that. So company and business industry research. One of the things I do when I put in those resumes, I do the search on Google, find the financial analyst. I say, what certifications do financial analysts need if they're working in the defense industry? And it'll give you a list of them. It'll give you a list of certifications and backgrounds you need to have for that industry. I'll also put the resumes in there and say, what certifications and training and skills are required to do this job are from this resume. Give me the skills and certification, and it'll give you a list of those. It'll help you understand what you need to know. One of my favorite things to tell people is a lot of defense contracting jobs, if they're any kind of management related, they require you to have PMI certification, Project Management Institute certification in project management. And so people will say, well, I don't have it. But with today's technology, you can sign up immediately and start the process and actually put on your resume. You could start today and be 1 week into it before you interview. You could say project management certification, September, you could say June of 2024, PMI. So say PMI, project management certification, expected June of 24. So that's not lying. It's showing you're taking initiative in an area you need to have a background in. And many of those kind of skills, things you can grab from looking at ChatGPT. So in summary, I'll go quickly over how I would use ChatGPT. Help me critique my resume on the wording and the formatting and highlights and accomplishments. It will help me compare against other resumes in an industry I'm looking at and see what I need to add, what keywords add. You can go get common interview questions, how to answer for an industry or a background or a business. And you can practice it right there with ChatGPT by inputting the audio, kind of like I'm doing today. Third, you can research companies and businesses in the area you're trying to get a job, the general region. And you can use it to analyze skills and certifications that you need for that position and get a list of those. So those are the main ones I pulled from researching and working. And I've actually used all those with clients that have engaged with me in suggestions of helping them get opportunities. So now I didn't bring any water, but I'm going to keep going. I think I have some candy here. I think I'm going to get a piece of candy, Christmas candy. And so now I'm going to talk about professional networking. Oh, this is probably my area of expertise. Definitely one of the secret sauces that I use to help people get great jobs. And okay, Jonathan Justice just sent me a message. He just said, "Go Bob streaming." He's the wind beneath my wings. He forced me to start doing podcasts. So thank you, Jonathan. He's a great young man in New Jersey. So professional networking. This is a kind of a fear area for a lot of people because, well, they're looking for work or they're, I might get rid of the gum. The candy, I realize, is probably clinking while I'm talking. So this is a fear area people struggle in. Your network is not just the people you have direct contact with or friends or people you previously worked with at a job or a position you've had. A professional network, your professional network, is actually people like yourself. So I'm, an engineer. I can go to other engineers and talk to them about engineering jobs. I have an engineering degree. I can go to other people that went to the same university I went to. I was a naval officer. I can talk to other Navy people. I can talk to other military people, and they'll talk to me. I've worked in defense. I've worked in technology. I've worked in software. Worked in small business. So people with similar backgrounds that have worked in specific companies, you can do searches on those companies in LinkedIn and actually reach out to them, and your response rate will be anywhere from 15 to 40%. And a 15 to 40% response rate, and the goal is always to have a conversation with them. So networking is really not about getting a job, but it's about having a good conversation with someone, a conversation that will lead to you asking them to do something for you. And people will do things for you, but you have to ask them. A lot of people have trouble asking, but when you ask, it's like my neighbor coming over. I borrow tools from both neighbors for my car and my motorcycles. I go over there and say, I need this 10 millimeter wrench for my motorcycle I'm repairing. And he's a friend, he's former military. We have meals together. He gives me a 10 millimeter wrench. The same way someone that's got an accounting degree, same as you, has a financial background like you, went to the same university as you, had the same experience in the Peace Corps as you, or the same nonprofit. You both have been worked at the World Bank, or you've all worked at Bank of America before. They actually want to help people that are like themselves. I call it people like me. So, but you have to ask them for something. You can't just have a conversation. I always ask people, can you forward my resume? Can you do a call with me? Can you tell me how you've stayed in the company so long? Tell me why you like working for Bank of America. So always have your ask. Get your ask on. That's one of my favorite quotes. So that's one way, professional networking, is just using LinkedIn, going beyond your first connections, your second and third connections, your group connections, and even the people you know in the region you know, going to, I like smoking cigars. So I might go to a lounge where there's women and men smoking cigars and talk about what I do and say, do you need help coaching or whatever you need. So um, so that's one thing is professional network is beyond your people you know. Job fairs, I believe, are useful for practicing, but not really getting a job. Rarely do people get jobs through job fairs. I believe it's the best place to practice. Practice there by going to a job fair in person, getting dressed up, and try to find hiring managers and not recruiters. Recruiters are not the enemy, but they are so overwhelmed. They are under such pressure most of the time that it's hard for them to give you the attention or really, they're looking for specific things a lot of times. It's hard for them to provide good feedback to you. For example, you're an accountant and you're going to a job fair where the big four, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Deloitte, um, the other two or three say are there. You go talk, you see hiring managers. You can recognize recruiters and hiring managers on how they stand, what they do at the booths. You want to go up to hiring managers and say, well, I really like to work for Accenture, even though Accenture is not a pure accounting company, but it's a consulting company spin-off of a consulting company. Go to the Accenture. How can I become an Accenture employee? You have a similar background as me. We're both accountants. How do I get in there? And so having real discussions with hiring managers. And even then, if they only have a minute, ask them if you can have a meeting afterwards, or if you could set up a phone call with them. Don't try to confess everything and get everything out in a rush at a job fair. Ask them politely, again, getting your ask on. Do you have time for a short call? Do you have a time for a short meeting to discuss this later? Not the recruiter, but a hiring manager. A lot of times they'll do that, and they'll give you really, really good insight. So think clearly about what is your network. And most people do not actively maintain their network. When they're looking for work, they pursue their network. Again, as I discussed earlier, your network is much wider than you and broader and with a lot more people than you think. Most jobs do not come through your network. but it comes through someone in your network or someone you've networked with who refers you to something. Most jobs come through referrals. They don't come through a direct application. It's better to have contact with the hiring manager, talk to them, and then get a referral from there. Have them tell you what to apply to. It's the hard way to go, but it's the way that has the highest percentage of getting employment. LinkedIn is really gold. It's worth getting premium if you're actively trying to build your network. LinkedIn has all the professionals on it. So you have to join the right groups that are professionals, your hobbies, the regionally based, regional, local, national based organizations that you're, friends with, you have a passion for, and then actively network. I try to do it every day, but at least I have a very, very broad networks. But when I was building my network, I would do it every day. But I'm actively on LinkedIn, and it can lead to very, very good jobs because you're reaching out and getting directly to the hiring manager. So to finalize my thought on professional networking, the goal of networking is very simple. So it's a very specific search where the goal is to have a conversation. That's it. Hopefully in person. I used to drive hours just to have a conversation, not just do a call. It's easy to do a call or email and text, but there's something about being in person and being excited and being with someone that it just increases the value just 10x, 12x, 15x. So the goal always is a conversation. Those conversations 99% of the time should be with hiring managers, decision makers, or influencers, people that have connections with people. And while you're having the conversation, make sure you politely ask them for something. If the conversation is going poorly, not going that well, just end the conversation politely and just walk away from it. But if it's going well, make sure you save enough time to ask them to do something for you. So that's kind of my first. I probably will do 4 or 5 different thoughts on networking, because between interviewing well, which is critical, most people do not prepare for interviews well, and they don't know how to prepare interviews. The next weakest area a lot of people have is how to work their professional network. And the last thing about professional network, which I actually told a client, not a client, somebody called in last a month ago when I was sick for 2 weeks. That's why I haven't been on the podcast. But some people exercise their network, their connections, or people they know way before they know what they're looking for. And one person and a previous client told me this, that one of the smartest things they did was not to reach out to anybody until they knew what they wanted and who they wanted to talk to. And that's one of the first things I tell people is if you come to tell people, well, I'm looking for work, I want to change jobs, but you don't tell them anything specifically, you aren't prepared for it, it's a waste of a conversation. And sometimes people won't re-engage with you after that. So very important before you network is to be ready and be prepared. So that was amazing. Good job, Bob. That was very well taken and done. I hope you guys I'm looking directly into the camera because I'm using a teleprompter. I thank Lauren for teaching me to do that. The last thing I'm going to do is, it'll be a little shorter today because I didn't get as many questions, but one of the questions, a little repetitive because I kind of talked about it, but was a question from a gentleman in Nebraska who's a top salesman in a small company. And he asked me, I've talked to all these recruiters and it's never gotten beyond that. So he was like pretty frustrated. And the second thing was, what was that? That was the main thing, is that he didn't hear back from recruiters. And if he reads all this stuff and he says, well, there's all these great opportunities out there, how come I can never have a conversation with the decision maker or hiring manager? So Let's talk about the first one, which I alluded to when we were talking about networking, is recruiters are for the most part inundated, and the best way to find a job is not through a recruiter, not applying and going through a recruiter. The best way to find a job is to make contact with the hiring manager and decision maker. And how do you do that? Like I said, you have to network correctly, send messages, and have conversation. It takes work. Most people that I talk to, I recommend them reaching out to 120 to 150 to 170 people a week on LinkedIn to get at least 3 conversations a week. And it seems like a lot. If you review every LinkedIn profile, sure, it's going to take you a long time, but if you get used to just kind of skimming them and knowing that people have the right background and do the right searches, it doesn't take that much time. And the recruiters are overwhelmed. The only recruiters I recommend talking to are corporate recruiters that have been there for many years. If they will talk to you or email you or talk to you, then that's the best person to talk to. They know the inside of the company, they know how things work. But beyond that, most people spend so much time talking to recruiters. The recruiters usually have 5 or 6 candidates for any one position. Sometimes they get delayed. A lot of times they're referral or internal candidates that they already have assigned. It's just not the way into a company or a position. So sure, it's marketed well. That's what you see all the time, but that's not the way to get a job. And that's why people get all frustrated. They get all depressed. This gentleman was not really encouraged. And I said, well, you have to talk to the right people. So the second part is, he said, well, how come there's all these hiring managers and decision makers and we can't talk to them? Well, that's because you have to know who to reach out to and get a conversation with them. And again, that's using LinkedIn, your network regionally. A lot of times it might be people you know that just ask them, help me. Can I have a conversation with this guy? Are they looking for accountants? Are they looking for financial analysts? It's doing some research on companies, reaching out to people, not reaching out to HR managers and recruiters, but reaching out to the actual hiring managers. A lot of times you have their emails right there and you'll have their phone numbers. You can call in and talk to them and politely say, hey, my name's Bob Jones. I'm an electrical engineer. I saw that you're the director of engineering for this company. Do you have 5 minutes to talk? He'll probably go, no, I don't have time now. If you said, I would send an email and call, but let me do a call with you next week or in 2 weeks. That's what you do. Then you'll be inside the company. He'll know the opportunities. He'll appreciate your initiative. You'll be way ahead of everybody else because everybody else is waiting for the job requirement to come out in 6 to 8 months. But they're usually looking for those positions a year to year and a half, sometimes 2 years before they even come out. So that's the answer to the one recruiting question. I really appreciate you listening today. I will look forward to the next podcast. I actually haven't picked the topic yet. I actually had some professionals tell me some areas that there will be want me to work on. So I haven't picked one yet, but I'll have another podcast. I'll either do it next week. I'm on vacation the first week in January, so I'll probably do it the second week of January. But thank you very much for listening. And I look forward to any questions. You can send them at bob@bobjonescoaching.com and look forward to any feedback or comments on ways to improve it. I can't change my voice, but anyway, appreciate the time. I hope everybody has a great holiday. Take care.